that we're recording. There we go. Well, welcome everybody. This is the Artist Talk number 7 on Thursday, July 29th, and it is by Shannon Lee Ray, and the topic is Living with Your New Art. My name is Terry Moore. I am lucky enough to be the executive director for the Sooke Fine Arts Society, and I get to help put on the show every year, which is wonderful. This is my 3rd year. As we begin, I'd like to respectfully acknowledge the Sooke First Nation on whose land we gather in celebration of the arts and for which we are very grateful. A couple of housekeeping notes. Normally, I would say at this point, we're going to mute everybody and just let Shannon talk. But I think because we're a small enough group tonight and we can ask questions, that we will leave the microphones open. And I can see somebody's just saying they want to stay quiet. That's absolutely fine. I will also open up the chat so that we can have questions asked if we need. And let me put that off to the side. We're a pretty informal bunch here, which is nice. We can ask questions when we need to and move through things. I will introduce Shannon. So I have an official biography for Shannon, and then I'll add a few words too, I'm sure. But this says that Shannon Lee Ray has been a professional photographer for over 25 years, beginning in fashion, then entertainment, then moving to corporate and commercial work, and now she's concentrating on fine art. Shannon served as the curator for one of the largest corporate art collections for more than 5 years, and she's brought her skills to the Sooke Fine Arts Show, for which we are eternally grateful. When she moved to Vancouver Island, currently serving as the lead of the design team, which is responsible for the look and the installation of the show each year, except this one, sadly. Although I will say Shannon had her hand in helping to jury the youth art selection and a few other things along the way. So she still is quite involved with things. Shannon has also done freelance work in interior design, home staging, and art installations over the years. And she's currently a very busy vocalist with 3 local bands and is opening a glamping B&B business. Well, actually has opened a glamping B&B business on her property in Shirley, BC. As Shannon mentioned, she is the design team lead, and we do lean heavily on her as we have been with Loretta in the past. So Loretta was the mentor for Shannon in getting this, getting the design and look of the team going, or the show going. So we're really grateful for that. So tonight, Shannon is going to talk about what do you do when you've purchased that lovely new piece of art? Where do you put it? How do you hang it? What does it need to be next? How do I care for it? All of those things. So examples and practical recommendations will be shared, and questions are definitely encouraged, either through the chat line if you want, or anytime, just sort of raise your hand. I'm watching, and we'll get those questions to Shannon. So with that, Shannon, I will turn it over to you. So please carry on.
Thank you so much, Terry. I'm so excited to be giving this talk for the 3rd time, once a year. So the 3rd year in a row giving this talk, and I really enjoy it because art is such a huge part of my life that I really enjoy sharing that passion and how to properly look after it, because so often we get it home and we're just not sure where it should be. And I've dealt with people over the years that have put it in the wrong place, and even working in the corporate environment that I was, that was a huge learning curve about where it should be and how far from windows, all those things that you need to worry about, and people shoving file folders up against art. So it was a huge learning curve for me, and I'm glad that I'm able to bring it forward. So where's my share my screen? Oh, hold on. Okay, share screen. So there we go. Okay, can you see that?
Yes, we can.
Okay, there we go. So this is, of course, this year's lovely. Part of the work that we do as the design team, one of the honors that we get is that we get to choose the image for the following year that becomes the image that everyone will see as the advertising goes out. So every year we get to look at all the pieces and say, what speaks to us about speaks to us best about the show and demonstrates what we felt feel the show is about. And so this piece that we chose last year, we thought was great because the Sooke Fine Arts Show is more than just art on the wall. It's also engaging the youth. It's about supporting musicians. It's about every facet of the arts, and we love that. And so this was why we chose this particular image with the gorgeous young lady playing the violin. It actually looked very much like the musicians look when they're at the Sooke Fine Arts Show playing. So we love that. Okay, so living with your new art. You already met me. What more can I say except I love what I do and I'm passionate. And yeah, art is just everything. Even my glamping business, there's a huge artistic facet to that I love sharing. All the cabins have art in them. Even making up breakfasts in the morning, I want it to be as artistic as possible. So there's little bits of flowers and yes, art is just my life. So this year I have 2 pieces in the show. These are the 2 pieces I have. The one is hanging right behind me temporarily. I'm still hoping somebody buys it, but there you go. Last year I had this piece on the left, and in 2016 I had the pieces on the right in the Taste of Art at the Sooke Fine Arts Show. So, but ironically, for all my fine art, this is the image that I have sold the most of any image I've created. It's so funny how things will just trigger with people. So Attack of the Zombie Cows is my most famous image and best-selling image. Strange. So there we go. So this is what the show looks like before we get started. And I'm sure it's a little tugging in our hearts. Mm-hmm. Loretta and Terry and I, it's like, oh, hopefully soon. But we have all these, yards and yards and yards of empty walls that need to be propagated. And so I'm sure sometimes it feels like that for you in your home. Where am I going to put this? How do I put it? And so you just do it piece by piece and one bit at a time. And then that's what it looks like when we're finished. By the time we get everything up, it's quite extraordinary. It truly is a world-class art show. I love to tell the story about the first time my husband and I were out visiting here and we saw Sooke Fine Arts Show. I am embarrassed to say, a little high and mighty, and thought, oh, let's go have a look at what Sooke has to offer. We both went in and our jaws hit the ground. And I thought, if I ever get blessed enough to move here, I want to be part of this. This is amazing. And I talked to somebody else who moved here from elsewhere, and they went through exactly the same thing. They thought, what can Sooke have to offer? Sooke has so much to offer, and we're so proud to be part of this. So here's what we're, us actually doing the work and getting it up on the wall. And we've got our little carts with our tools and our measuring, and your mind almost starts to spin with all the numbers in your head because there's so much to put up and remember. And then that's again what it looks like once it's done. Sorry, I gotta move a kitty cat here who's shaking everything. Say hi, bye. There we go. Sorry. So why art? And that is a huge question for me. And Nietzsche said, we have art in order not to die of the truth. And I think right now, particularly with everything that's going on in the world, art means even more. Being part of the music situation that I do, we've had people actually break down weeping when we're performing in the park, because they're so happy to be touched again by live art. And that's why we have art on our walls, to escape the monotony and sometimes the horrors with a small h of the world around us. So art enables us to find ourselves and to lose ourselves at the same time, which is also another quote I love. And von Goethe said, a man should hear a little music, read a little poetry, and see a fine picture every day of his life, in order that worldly cares may not obliterate the sense of the beautiful which God has implanted in the human soul. And I love all those quotes, and they exactly sum up my attitude towards art. So, all right. So I always say, Populate your walls with love and memories. So don't just buy things because they look good and they match your colors. Buy the things that touch your heart. Put the things that evoke memories or evoke feelings or create a strong reaction. Don't just live with mundanity. Don't just go to Winners and pick something again because it's the right color for your walls. Explore the emotions that art can create. And that's why it doesn't necessarily have to be art. It can be photos that you really love. Blow them up, enjoy them, really love what is on your walls. Life is too short to put bad art on your walls. I would say learn the rules and then break them. Things can be completely non-matching for your house, and focus around that. You know, again, step outside the norms, step outside the rules to be able to create something that's really unique to you, that you love coming home to. And I always say support local living artists. That may be you. Again, your photographs, whatever you're creating, support them. Okay. I always say that when you buy a piece of art at Winners, there's nobody doing a little happy dance. When any of us who are artists sell a piece, honestly, you get so excited and you feel so validated, and you do a happy dance, and it you know, you may be able to eat that month depending on what kind of artist you are and how much you're invested in just living by your art. But it is so important to support those living artists. The outrageous prices that we see now for Van Goghs and names. Anyway, they can't enjoy it. They're not enjoying it. Support the living artists. Art versus decor. Again, supporting art versus just decor, something that you love. All right. So now you've actually got your piece. Protect your investment. You know, you've purchased something that's really, really lovely. You want to make sure that it's going to last, that you'll be able to enjoy it for many years. Check your hanging hardware regularly. You do not want it coming off. We've had so many situations where we've got the cheaper, what we call D-rings, that are actually more like triangles, and we've taken them off the wall and they literally fall apart. So make sure that your hanging hardware is in good repair, that you have good solid pieces on there that will protect and not fall apart. Wires stretch over time. Anything can happen. We know we live in an earthquake zone. So again, you want to make sure that you've got it hanging properly on 2 hooks. That's why we hang on 2 hooks in case of earthquakes or any other accidents that can come along. And so do really check that hardware. I say location, location, location. What that means is be very aware of where your art is hanging. The sun, as we know, has a huge effect on anything. It either darkens things or fades things depending on how the article receives that sunshine. But with art, particularly watercolors, drawings, and photographs, they will fade really badly. So you definitely want a UV protective glass on those 3 in particular. Oils, acrylics are a little more forgiving, so they can go closer to the window, but you still don't want them in a place, like you don't want them above a particularly smoky fireplace, because the smoke will rise up and get on the painting. You don't want them right in a bright area. If you do need to put them there, I say give it a rest. So rotate them out, rotate them to different areas. We had some very, very, very valuable watercolors in the Gulf ConocoPhillips collection that I was the curator of. And I would leave them up for 2 months, 3 months maximum. And then I take them down and shift them around because, again, they want to be protected. They want to be babied. They want to be enjoyed, but they want to be enjoyed carefully. So that is that. So where? So this is a piece that I have up. It's a perfect wall for kind of framing, for being a big piece that I can see whenever I walk by. And I really enjoy it there. Every time I come around the corner, there it is. So look for your places that that you have your spots that really need focus and where you want to enjoy them the best, and pick pieces that are going to suit. That particular wall, because it's so tall and narrow, would not suit a horizontal piece. It just wouldn't. Whereas, you know, a square would be fine, but definitely the long vertical piece looks really, really smart, I think, there. The other thing that I was going to go back to is when you are thinking about giving things a rest. I had a boss my boss in Calgary. She had 2 paintings that were similar size and were actually, one was a winter scene and one was a summer scene, and she would change them. And at the time I thought, oh, that's a lot of work. But, you know, now that I'm out here, I do the same thing. This particular piece is up in the summer because I love this. It has wonderful memories for me from Alberta, hiking at Lake Louise. And then in the winter around Christmas, I switch it out because we don't really get snow here. And I kind of miss that sometimes. So I put a really snowy, lovely mountain scene up in the winter. It gives this piece a chance to rest again. And it just keeps it interesting for me. So again, wherever you're going to decide to put things, so these 2 pieces, the one on the left is actually now where the fire, because when I was moving that one to put this one up to take a picture of it for the Sooke Fine Arts Show, it fell and broke. So that's why this one's hanging up right now, but I'm also enjoying it myself. But so this is on the wall that you're seeing behind me. And again, it's the exact opposite wall from where that big Lake Louise picture is. So you're looking down the hall towards it. And you'll probably notice too, that I've got lighting above both of them. I make sure that there's some lighting that can really just cheer them up a bit and make sure that there's some focus. Now the one on the right is right beside it. You can't see it, maybe you can see it. There you go. So that's the one that's right beside it. Now they look at like they're at different heights, but ooh, there's a step there, and we're going to get into that, why they're at different heights, but they need to be. But again, it worked well having the vertical and the horizontal just in that particular place. They have similar colors. Again, it's not all about the colors, but in this case, it did happen to particularly work well. So, and they're pieces that really, again, mean a lot to me. So that's, again, where they're placed. And so they don't match. Nothing needs to match. All I did was to tie them together. They have the same frame, but then they've got different mats. They're different directions. Nothing needs to match per se, just as long as there's something that ties them together in some way so that there's a connection. And then this is right above. So if you go up the stairs and look, it's enough of a separation. They're 2 separate floors. So I was able to put this massive piece. It's a huge black and white above. And so really, unless you're at the top of the stairs, you don't really see that there's 2 pieces. And then you're so focused on the one at the top that you don't, they don't tend to interfere with each other. But again, I've got a little tiny house. It's only just 1,100 square feet. And I want to get as much art on my wall as possible because art is what matters to me. So again, going back to that, break the rules, know the rules, and then break the rules. So in a perfect world, I might not have put 2 pieces there, but it's not a perfect world and they make me happy. So break the rules. This is another piece. This was a piece that was actually a gift from my stepson. And looking down on it, it looks like it's quite low, but again, breaking the rules. When you're standing underneath it, it almost looks balanced because you're looking up. And normally that wouldn't be a very good place or way to do it, but it looked really neat there. And between the windows, it looked like part of the whole thing. So again, know the rules, break them, put stuff where it makes you happy. Okay, so hang on. Here we go with, so now you want to get it on your wall. How do you do that? So you need some tools. I say we need a measuring tape. We need a hammer. I like a little tacking hammer. It's way better and way easier to work with than a great big hammer. But don't go out and just buy a hammer just because. But these are all the things I need to have all the time. And a level, of course. And a pencil with an eraser because you're going to make lots of marks on the walls. And if you're getting old and fuzzy like me, a piece of paper to write all your numbers down because there's no way I'm going to remember that. So, and I also like, if you are again hanging a lot of pieces, I like this folding tape measure because it makes it easy to get your hooks level. But again, you could just use a plain old stick or plain old measuring tape. I'm hanging great big things. So this goes up to almost 80 inches. So that's why I need that. But you could just use a ruler or a stick. So, and then you need your hooks and your nails. And again, spend a little extra money to get really good hooks because you again want to protect your pieces. So we'll talk about those in a minute. So you'll need those. Now, how high? That's what we always get asked is how high do I put things? The standard for museum is 58 to 60 inches at the center. So if you're measuring from the floor, let me know if you can't hear me. If you're measuring from the floor, the middle of your piece, I did these at 60 inches only because this is a high traffic area. So I chose 60 just to give it a little bit of height. So that's the very middle of your painting. And that's kind of an average height so that you're looking straight at it. You don't want to be looking too far up or too far down at a piece. You want it basically at eye level. So that's why we choose that 58 to 60 inches. Now, again, there may be some rules that get broken. For instance, this piece right here is obviously way higher than that, but it's right above a heat source. And so I'm trying to protect it. And so it is what it is. To protect the art, it's a little higher than it should be, but I can live with that. Thirds, again, you want to, I don't know why I have thirds written down. I'll come back to that. Breathing room. Everything needs some breathing room. Try not to pick something that's too big for the space. Going back to that one of Lake Louise, it would be very easy to be able to put something quite large there, but I've left enough breathing space around the edges that it doesn't feel like it's overwhelming the wall. It's big, but it's not overwhelming the wall. Okay, so talking about the hooks, these are ooks, and that's not a spelling mistake. So they're a specialty hook, which is absolutely marvelous. We used it all the time. They started out for museums and galleries, and now they're available pretty much everywhere. But they make such a difference in your walls because you know the traditional nails and hooks that are so big, and they make these massive holes in your walls that just, then you have to come back and do all the filling. These are tiny, tiny little nails with the little ends that you can see there. And so they just go into your wall. And because of the way they're designed so cleverly, they can hold amazing amounts of weight whilst on a tiny little nail that you can actually pull out because it's got a little tiny head on it. So I cannot recommend the oops highly enough. They absolutely save our lives so many times because I moved hundreds and hundreds of paintings. Not that yes, we did have hundreds of paintings, but I moved them so many times at Gulf that these made my life so much simpler. And they're available at Canadian Tire and Michael's, and I think Lowe's has them now. So they've become very commonplace and they're fantastic. Okay, so now you're actually ready to hang your art. So I'm going to take this one down. So what you want to do is figure out where your center space is, where you want the piece to go. Okay, so that would be the one you mark as A. So figure out, so my center here is from the edge of the wall to the edge of the steps here. And I've already got my center mark there. So you make a little mark at your center point, okay? Then you measure the height of your frame and divide that by 2. And that gives you your center point. Add that number to the 58 or 60, 58. So that's where the top of your piece is now going to be. That gives you the center of your piece to the top. All right, so the measure that total from the floor and mark it as B. So that's now the top of your painting, okay? So then what you're going to do is take the back of your piece and at about a third, because that gives it lots of stability, you're going to grab it by your fingers. So measure out how far you've done it. Put your pencil down. Okay, I'm gonna have to do this. Okay, so grab it by the thing. Measure how far you've come across. So in this case, I'm gonna do 8 inches. So it's 8 inches is where my marks are going to go. Okay, is everybody following this? I know this is really tough by Zoom. Okay, and then you've got the weight. So then drive your finger into the piece, flip your, flip your tape measure around. Gotta bring it up again. And then measure from where the wire is to the top of the piece. Okay, does that make sense? So you've held it taut. You've held it taut. Drive your finger in so that it doesn't move. Hold it and then measure where your finger is to the top of the piece. Okay, got that? Then you measure down from the top to that point. And that gives you how far down from the top your hooks are going to go. Okay, so if that's the, for example, top of your piece right there, theoretically, then you're going to measure down and say it's 5 inches or whatever. Okay, that's where your hooks are going to go. Then what I do is measure out. So remember we said on this particular one, 8 inches. So then from the center point, you're going to measure 4 inches to each side. And that's where your 2 hooks will go. Okay, does that all make sense? Okay, good. All right, then you install your hooks, you bang them into the wall, and you put your piece up. Grab your level, because the level is your friend. And that's not straight at all. And it should just sit really nicely there. And so between the ooks and the fact that you've got 2 hooks, let an earthquake come, it's not gonna fall apart, which is great. As long, again, as you've got those good hooks on the back. And I'll show you that again, talking about the D-rings on the back. That's not the one to show you. Hold on. You know, there we go. There. You can see these really strong D-rings right there that come through. So those are D-rings, and those are the best things for making sure that you
Shannon,
yes,
can you get that just a little bit closer to the camera? Is that possible?
There?
Okay, yeah, that's better. Okay.
Those are really heavy duty ones. They're great.
Yeah, okay, good.
So yeah, and then your wire should be nicely done, but somebody will have done that for you if you have taken it somewhere professional to have it done. But do make sure that they're giving you the very best D-rings that they possibly can.
Okay.
Okay. So any questions besides that on any of that?
Can you, yes. So I like to follow along using real numbers. So you said you found your center point and you said it was 60. Is that right? 60
Yeah.
inches? Okay.
I'm using 60 because I needed it a little higher because it's a high traffic area. So yeah. So your center point is 60 and then 60 high. Yeah.
And then the height of the frame and divide by 2, you said.
Correct. And then add that number, the divided number. So if my frame is, let's do this actual. My frame is 25 inches. So it's 60 plus 12 and a half.
Okay. So 72 and a half is your
top of your frame.
The top of the frame. Okay.
Correct. So that's where the top of the frame is going to hit.
Okay.
Then you're turning it around to measure to see how far down the hooks need to come.
Right. Okay. So that's where you hold it taut. Yep. And at 8 inches you used, so is that the 8 inches between the thing or, okay. So 8 inches, you did that.
Yeah, basically what you're doing is trying to divide it into thirds. So if it was a 21, I think I went too wide, but if it was a 21 inch wide frame, it would be at 7 inches.
7 inches.
So
okay.
The thirds just gives it that extra, it's an easy number and it gives it that extra stability by being so wide.
Okay.
Yeah. Then it doesn't move nearly as much. So.
All right.
Okay, yeah, so then you come straight down from your mark that's at your 72 and a half inches. You come down, let's say it was 5 inches, mark there, and then do your
out from the centerpiece.
Correct.
Aha. Okay.
You can't go wrong.
All right.
Okay.
That's thank you for that.
It's
always good to have it in
absolutely
numbers when you're thinking about things like that.
For sure. Okay. For sure.
Great.
Okay. Okay. That's the basics. So I think we had a lot more questions. Okay. So please ask questions.
Well, I do have a question for you as well. So actually, I've got a couple of questions, but one, what do you, I know you like the little ooks. Those are good. I haven't actually used those yet. And I haven't, despite knowing this information from last year, I have not gotten around to putting 2 on the back of each of my pieces and putting them up. But prior to knowing any of this really good and useful information, I found those hooks with the real bend in them that you can jam in your wall and they come around and what do you think about those?
They're good. They, really any hooks are good. What I'm trying to do with the ooks is minimize damage because I'm one of those people that hates going back and mudding and touching up and I like to change things quite a bit. So the less damage I can do to my walls, and particularly if you're a renter, I mean, the last thing you want is big gouges in your walls. So to be able to securely fasten them with minimal damage is really great. And especially the weight. I mean, here the difference between something like this that has this huge nail that you need to that holds the same weight, and look at how much smaller it is, and you've got this tiny little nail. So it really is amazing. But yeah, if you know that something is going to be staying in place and you know that you're really not going to move it, basically anything that holds it securely is great. So all I care about is that it's not coming off the wall.
Yeah, good point. And hence the 2 pieces. I do like that. So
yes.
I think I will go slowly and change mine. But, does anybody else have any questions before I jump in with another one?
No, having encountered some of this before,
Mhm.
some of the hands-on thing, you can understand why it takes so long for things to get
Well, that's it. That's it.
hanging, because it has to be so precise. But once you get it, like Shannon can whip through them, but some of us take a lot longer in the calculations and somehow still get it wrong. I never.
But the funny thing is that it was so nice to be able to actually be hanging things again this year, because Terry didn't mention that
Right.
we put up the show winners, the award winners, in an actual gallery this year, which was so exciting compared to last year where we did nothing. And so it really felt like there was a show. It was wonderful. But the funny thing is that having a 2-year break, my brain was going, oh no, what are my calculations? How do I do this? And every year it's not as bad as having a 2-year break, but even with a 1-year break, I'm thinking, ooh, I don't think I remember how to do this. Of course I always do, but for the first, so yeah, so it is very mathematically oriented, but at the same time, it's a formula that works, and it works great. And once you've got the formula in your mind, you can't go wrong. All you have to do is sometimes tweak for height is the biggest thing, because sometimes with over top of here, you're gonna see my very messy house right now, but I'm gonna show you. This is a piece that I have above my couch, which is covered because I have cats, and so it's really hard. It's very low from where I would normally have it. So you're actually looking down on it a bit, but at the same time, it's a very low couch. You've got all this woodwork above. So again, knowing the rules and then breaking them. Well, how is this going to look best? I've got it probably a little higher than I would ultimately like as far as breathing space. But at the same time, if it were any lower, it would look silly. So I'm negotiating the best of both worlds to try and give it the height it needs, but at the same time, give it the breathing space above that it needs. So again, you have to work with your environment, and it's not always perfect. That's not perfect, but it is what it is. And it's, again, a big picture that makes me very, very, very happy. So I live with it. So.
Mhm.
And this is, we've since redecorated this. We changed, in the picture it was an ottoman, and we've changed it for a thing, and it might be a little low because now we've got this this lovely maquette that we acquired that we're very proud of, and that's why we wanted to be able to display it. But it's still okay because there's still some breathing room. I had some taller candles, but they didn't work, so I dropped the candles down, and the maquette just kind of blends in. And at some point I probably might put a slightly smaller picture now because we want to focus on this. So this was a lovely story. Actually, I have time for a great story. This is a great story. This at the Conoco, at the Gulf, in the Gulf collection, was a large sculpture. And one of the moving guys came to me one day and said, I broke the sculpture. I said, what do you mean you broke the sculpture? He said, I broke the sculpture. So we went and looked, and he'd actually just broken the base. And for whatever reason, and again, oil companies to have, anyway, they said, well, it's broken now. We don't want to spend the money because it doesn't even fit in the collection anymore. So just get rid of it. And I thought, oh. So I said, can I take it home? Don't care, take it home. So about a week, no, it was longer than that. It was about a month later, I get a call from the artist, and he said, do you still have that piece in your collection? I said, well, no, actually, it's in my backyard. He said, oh, it's not supposed to be outside. Can I buy it back from you? I was like, but the base is broken. He said, I hated that base. That base should have never been there. I'm like, okay, you can have it. And so he was lovely. So I shipped the piece to him, and because he was doing a retrospective of his work. Turns out he's this very famous Eastern Ontario sculptor who makes these massive pieces. And so as a thank you, he gave us this little maquette, which is the miniature of the piece that apparently is absolutely enormous, like life size. You can walk between these things in Brampton, Ontario.
Oh, wow.
And so he creates the little maquettes
Mhm.
to show the proportions and how it's going to look once it was big, to basically sell it to the city to be able to put it up. So that's how we ended up. And he was a lovely elderly gentleman, and he died not long afterwards. So this means a lot to us. So again, it isn't the value of a piece, it's the memories. And so every time I look at it, I think of Mr. Hayden Llewellyn Davies, and I think of what a lovely human being he was, and it makes me happy. So that's why we have art.
That is a lovely story. I like that.
Mhm.
Oh, she's gone. She's coming back. I have one more question for you, Shannon,
Absolutely.
and that is about hanging multiple pieces. So hanging pieces in
Yeah.
an array, sort of. How would you go about doing that?
That is a very good question, Terry. And we just went through that hanging at the gallery for the award winners,
Right.
because there's two ways to go about it. You can either start with your centerpiece and work around that. So you would figure out where you want that center to be and use it as your focal point, especially if it was a bigger one surrounded by smaller ones, and then lay it out as a jigsaw. And the best way, I always say, lay it out on the floor. Take a sheet that's approximately the size of your wall or whatever, and lay it out, and then measure your distances. Usually with collages or groupings of pictures, you want no more than 2 to 3 inches. 3 inches can even be too much. Probably 2 inches, unless they're really big pieces, then 3 inches, to give them, to keep them grounded, to keep them together. And that works really well. So laying it out. The other thing is, if you've got, Terry, as you know, and probably Loretta, you saw, of course, Loretta, you saw it too. You were at the gallery today. But we've got the 4 pieces hanging above that are all the exact same size. What you do is you work with that as a total piece. So you put them all together, you measure the entire distance, and then you factor in your distance between. And then I start at one end and work all the way across instead of working in the middle. So now you're thinking of it as one piece that happens to have 2, 4, 6, 8 inches in the middle. So it's if, like, say they were 20-inch pieces, so that's 80 inches, but you've got 2 inches, it now becomes a like an 88-inch piece. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's hard for me to do math really fast in my head. Anyway, so yeah, and so you would hang the first one. And the really nice thing is once you get the first one up and right, they tend to go quite quickly, especially if they're even if they're done well on the back, so that they're all the same size. If you've got them all at different hanging heights, like the wires are different heights, that can get a little tricky. That's where you're making a lot of holes in the walls, and why you like your ooks. But anyway, so because you probably have to move a couple of, one or two a couple of times. So, but think of that scenario as one big piece and deal with it accordingly, or think of it as a collage and work around it. So those are your two scenarios with multi pieces.
Thank you. Sort of on that idea of the collage too, how do you decide what pieces go together? Is it by content? Is it by style? Is it by frame color? What's the best way to go about that?
I think, again, that's a great question. And I think that completely depends on what you're looking to do. For instance, if it was varied and it was different family things and it wasn't really tied together. I mean, there is a thematic there in the sense of, say, they're all family shots or whatever. What you can do is, as long as the frames are in not matching necessarily, but again, tie together, maybe they're all black frames, maybe they're all silver frames, something to ground them, to pull them together. Because they're different sizes, or they're different looks, they're different things. Or it's thematic. Maybe everything's the same color. Maybe everything's got a splash of blue in it. Pick something don't just be random, period, because that's not going to work. Pick some way to draw them together thematically, color, or your framing, and then you cannot go wrong.
Okay, good. Anybody else have a question? Not at the moment. I do have one more question. That's about lighting. You talked about the fact that you have lights over top of each of your paintings. What are they hardwired in, or what do you do?
No, well, the one behind me is hardwired in, but the other ones are lovely. They're little battery powered ones, and I can't remember where I got them, but they're great because they're LED. So I know that they're not going to damage the artwork, and I can put them on when I need to. I would love to be able to have lights on every single one because that really shows them. But a lot of times you just pick where the light is going to be good and hope for the best. For instance, the one that's beside the one behind me doesn't have light, but it's right beside a little window. And so I deliberately chose a piece too there that would be okay with a slaking light, it's coming in from the side. So it's a sunrise shot and it works with the light coming in from the side. So it's a little worrisome because it's awfully close to the window, but I've got UV glass on it and I hope for the best. And I'm the artist, I can always replace it.
Yeah, there you go. It helps with your own work. Yeah.
Yes. And again, that's one thing that makes me a little sad about having a tiny home with lots and lots of windows is I don't get to put up a lot of art because I would love to collect art, but at the same time, my art means a lot to me. So I do have other pieces. You saw the one above the door and Hayden's piece. And so things that matter to me by other people, I definitely put up, but a lot of times I just really enjoy my own work because it's the memories. And that's coming full circle. That's what it's about. It's about what makes you happy, what brings you joy, what makes you love being in your home. And that's the key, again, I believe, to selecting your artwork, and then just making sure you take really good care of it because it's an investment that should last not just your lifetime, but to be able to pass it on. But I did want to say something too about framing, which really was driven home to us this year with the 4 pieces, because beautiful work, absolutely stunning work. And then she cheaped out on the frames and I was just devastated and heartbroken. And it's kind of like, I don't know if you remember, but they used to say, dress above your pay grade. Dress the pay grade that you aspire to. And I used to do that. But I also think frame above the pieces value. Not outrageously so, but really think about the frame and think about that because those cheap frames really took away from some extraordinary art. And it was so disappointing. And I thought the reverse of that was one time, Jeff and I used to love, my husband, and I used to love to go to antique auctions in Calgary and pick up stuff for our house. And there was a great piece, and it looked like a lithograph of a famous Alberta artist, Roland Gissing. And so we thought, oh, this is great. And it was beautifully framed. It matched our house. We picked it up for not very much. We got home and I don't know why I was poking around in the back of it. It turned out it was just a page from a calendar from a bank, but it had been so well put together and so nicely done that it fooled me. And so again, it doesn't have to be an expensive piece of art. If it's something that makes you happy, and it's, if obviously that calendar made that person happy and they put it in a nice frame, you can get away with a lot. So it just made me chuckle. I was mad for all of 2 seconds. And I thought, good for you. Good for you. Very clever. So
good point. All right. Well, I think what we'll do then is wrap up here. Thank you so much, Shannon. As always, this is a really great grounding in what to do with your art once you get it and get it home, and how to care for it properly and how to hang it. So you've inspired me to go home and look at the pieces I have. And maybe it's time to rotate some of them. Maybe I don't need to have all those collages. Maybe it's time to look a little bit more closely and look at some different ones, or ones I haven't had out for a little while. So
Well, and that's it, because it is an opportunity to go and say, what else would I like to look at? What other memories? Because probably since you put those up in the first place, you've created new memories, and you've got new things that you would enjoy seeing.
Absolutely.
Life changes and life carries on. So
yeah. It certainly does. Yeah. So thank you for that. Thank you everybody else for joining us tonight too. And like I mentioned, this is being recorded, so it will be up on the website for the next year for good solid information. Recommend it to your friends if you like to go in and take a look and take a listen and find out some information that's very valuable. I will take this opportunity too to mention that we've got 3 more talks coming up. The next one is tomorrow night, Friday at 7 o'clock. And this is by the artist Sheena McCorkadale, who actually is an award winner at this year's show. She created a 7-foot tall sculpture based on Isadora Duncan called Isadora Arabesque. Isadora Arabesque. And it is in homage to Isadora Duncan's ability to have changed the dance scene at the time that she did. And it is an amazing piece, and it's made entirely of chicken wire. So if you want to find out how to make 7-foot tall statues that look magnificent out of chicken wire, this is the talk for you. The next one is on Saturday evening, and it is at 6 p.m. this time. And it's by Birgit Koth, who is an amazing artist, again, in the show this year. And her talk is about how does artwork draw us in? How do you find that focal point and get people to feel like they're coming into your picture? If you look on the website about that talk, there's an image of the painting that she did that got accepted into the show this year. And it is an absolutely stunning peony that just feels like you're a little bee ready to crawl inside of it. And so I'm looking forward to that one as well. And then finally on Sunday evening at 7, we have abstract artist Mary Lou Wakefield talking about abstract painting in acrylic. And her piece this year is a beautiful big abstract piece that is, I think, blue on the top and orange on the bottom, but like a wildfire, and with this just tiny little ribbon and pinpoint of light in there. It's just fascinating. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what she has to say about that as well. And those can all be found online on our show. If you look through events, they're all listed there, and feel free to go and register for free. And while I'm at it too, I will also say we have an amazing auction going on with some wonderful things in it. And there's still a few days left to bid on things. So please go and check that out. Also, again, on our website, if you look under the show and scroll down to the bottom of the drop-down list, there is auction there. And you can have some amazing bargains to be had, and some wonderful experiences, including 2 that Shannon very generously donated. One of them is a glamping stay at her place, and the other is a musical event. So 2 hours of Shannon and her partner, is it Bill Kent?
Bill Kent.
Yeah, and they will perform for 2 hours at a place to be selected by you. So that would be a wonderful, wonderful event to break out of this COVID time that we're in. So feel free to go on and take a look at those. But other than that, I will say thank you again to everybody. I'm going to stop the recording and bid you all good night, and have a lovely rest of the evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Shannon. Thank you, Terry.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.